The night I ended up in my neighbor's basement with a wrench in one hand and my pulse suddenly doing the wrong thing, I had been planning on a very different evening. I was supposed to be home by 7, eating takeout over my kitchen sink, and pretending that fixing other people's houses for a living counted as a full enough personal life. Instead, at 6:38, my phone lit up with a text from the woman next door. "Lily, I know this is a ridiculous favor, but is there any chance you're home? There's water coming from somewhere under my stairs." That was how it started. My name is Owen Carter. I'm 35 and I run a small home repair and renovation business in Richmond, Virginia. Nothing fancy. Old houses, bad wiring, leaky roofs, unpredictable plumbing, and clients who swear the problem just started today while standing in front of obvious damage from the Clinton administration. I liked the work because houses made sense. Something breaks, you trace the source, you fix what's wrong, and if you do it right, things hold. People were harder, especially after my divorce. That had been 3 years earlier, and by now I had settled into a life that was clean, manageable, and a little too quiet. I worked too much. I ran in the mornings. I kept my tools organized by drawer. I told myself I preferred peace to complication. Then Lily Monroe bought the house next door, and peace got significantly less convincing. She moved in during late spring with a U-Haul, a golden retriever named June, and the look of a woman who had done something brave recently and wasn't entirely sure whether to feel proud or sick about it. She was 32, worked remotely as an interior designer, and had the kind of face that made every expression feel slightly more dangerous than it should have. Not because she was dramatic, because she was direct, warm when she meant it, dry when she didn't. Impossible to mistake for shy. The first week, I helped her move a dining table through her front door after she spent 10 minutes arguing with the angle. The second week, I fixed her porch light. After that, it became normal. She borrowed my ladder. I carried in a bookshelf. She brought over banana bread she claimed she'd made as a thank you and not as emotional manipulation. I told her the bread could be both. We fell into the kind of neighbor rhythm that feels harmless right up until it isn't. I knew what coffee she bought. She knew I worked too late and forgot lunch if nobody reminded me. I let June out once when Lily got stuck on a client call. She started texting things like, "Do you own a wrench for dramatic emergencies or only normal ones?" So when the water text came through, I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my tool bag, crossed the yard, and found Lily waiting at the side door in leggings, an oversized gray t-shirt, and socks that were already damp around the edges. "Please tell me you're here to save me from financial ruin," she said. "I'm here to prevent you from crying in front of your water heater." She stepped aside to let me in. Too late, I cried at the sound of it. The basement stairs were narrow, old, and badly lit. Halfway down, I could already hear the problem, a sharp, uneven hiss and the ugly slap of water hitting concrete. "Shut off?" I asked. "Left wall, I think." "You think?" "I'm an interior designer, Owen. My job is making things beautiful, not wrestling moisture." That got me smiling despite myself. At the bottom of the stairs, I found the issue fast. A cracked section of supply line above the utility sink. Not catastrophic, but messy enough to become one if ignored. I shut the valve, got the water to stop, and crouched near the pipe to inspect the fitting. Behind me, Lily let out a long breath. "You have no idea how attractive competence is." I looked over my shoulder. "That seems like a reckless thing to say to a man holding channel locks." "Just calling it like I see it." That was Lily. She said lines that from anyone else would have sounded practiced. From her, they sounded like she had simply decided not to lie. I focused on the pipe. "That's cracked through. I can patch it tonight, but I should replace the section tomorrow." Tonight is good. I'm not emotionally ready for the phrase "replace the section." The basement smelled like detergent, concrete, and damp cardboard. Rain tapped faintly against the little ground-level window near the ceiling. The kind of setting that should have killed romance on contact. Instead, it made everything feel closer. The space was tight. She stayed near because she wanted to understand what I was doing, or maybe because she trusted me more when she could see my hands. Every time she shifted, I became aware of it. The warmth of her standing too near. The soft sound of her socks on concrete. The fact that her perfume was clean and subtle and entirely unfair in a basement. "Flashlight?" I asked. She handed it to me immediately. "Thanks." "You say that like you're surprised I'm useful." I'm trying not to say anything about the fact you handed me a candle 10 minutes ago. It was nearby. It was decorative. It still had illumination potential. I laughed. That was the problem with her. She made ordinary moments feel less ordinary. I finished wrapping the temporary fix and reached up to test the line. Solid. Good enough for tonight. Okay, I said. Turn it back on slowly. She went to the valve and did exactly that. No hiss, no spray, no new leak. I let out a breath. You're safe until tomorrow. Lily smiled, relieved. Really smiled. Not the quick teasing one. The one that softened her whole face. Thank you. I stood, and that's when I realized just how little room there was between us. She was closer than I thought. Maybe one step away, maybe less. Close enough that if I leaned forward even slightly, this would stop being a neighbor favor and become a terrible idea very fast. I moved to set the wrench on the utility sink, mostly to create space. Lily noticed. Of course she noticed. Her eyes flicked from my hand to my face, and something in her expression changed. Still warm, still playful, but more searching now, more aware. Then she stepped closer instead of back. Not enough to touch me, enough to make it a choice. Owen, she said quietly. I looked at her. The basement had gone strangely silent, like the whole house was waiting. Her voice dropped just a little. Can I ask you something? I should have said yes casually. I should have kept the tone light. Instead, I heard myself say, depends how dangerous the question is. That made one corner of her mouth lift. Then she looked directly into my eyes and asked, are you trying this hard not to kiss me? Or am I imagining that? I looked at her and made the mistake of answering honestly. No, I said. You're not imagining it. Lily didn't move. Neither did I. The basement suddenly felt even smaller than it was. Low ceiling, concrete floor, the faint smell of damp cardboard and metal, and her standing close enough that I could see the tiny change in her breathing. So you are trying not to kiss me, she said quietly. Yes. One corner of her mouth lifted. That sounds painful. You have no idea. That got a soft laugh out of her, but it faded quickly. What replaced it wasn't teasing, it was relief. Real relief, like she had been bracing herself for me to tell her she'd read everything wrong. I set the flashlight down on the sink. Lily, why not then? It was a fair question, an unfairly direct one, but fair. So I gave her the truth. Because you're my neighbor, I said. Because I like living next to you. Because if I kiss you and it goes badly, I still have to see your recycling bins every Thursday like a reminder from God. I held her gaze. And because I'm not casual about you. That changed her expression, not dramatically, just enough that the air between us shifted from flirtation to something more dangerous. Not casual, she repeated. No. Lily looked down for a second, then back at me. Good. That one word landed harder than it should have. Before I could ask what she meant, she took in a slow breath and said, I asked because if I didn't, I was going to lose my mind. I smiled despite myself. That's flattering. It's annoying, she corrected. You fix things at my house, you remember what coffee I like. You text me when there's a storm because you know June gets anxious, and then every time we end up in a moment like... She gestured lightly between us. You act like you need a permit. I probably do. That made her laugh again. Then she said, more softly, I just needed to know I wasn't the only one feeling it. You'd think that would have made things easier. It didn't. It made them real. I took a step closer, enough that if either of us made one bad decision, it would immediately become a very good one. You're not the only one, I said. Lily looked at my mouth, then back at my eyes. Okay. The way she said it nearly wrecked me. I should have kissed her right there. I wanted to. Badly. Instead, I said, we should probably go upstairs before your basement turns this into a hostage negotiation. She stared at me for half a second, then laughed under her breath. You are a deeply frustrating man. I've been told. We went upstairs, and somehow the kitchen felt just as charged. Maybe worse. Basements at least give you pipes to look at. Kitchens give you counters to lean against and too much room to think. Lily poured us each a glass of wine without asking, then handed me one and leaned back against the island. So, she said, now what? Now what? That was the whole problem. I was still deciding how honest to be when she set her glass down and said, actually, there's something else. Her tone changed enough that I straightened a little. What? She folded her arms loosely, not defensive exactly, but bracing. I got an offer this morning. For what? A design firm in Boston. She held my eyes. Senior creative lead, big project, better money, bigger clients. The kind of thing I told myself I moved here to stop chasing. I stared at her. This was not where I thought the evening was going. When were you planning to mention that? She gave me a tired little smile. Maybe never. Maybe after I decided. Maybe after I pretended I wasn't waiting to see whether there was any reason to stay. That hit harder than it should have. You'd leave? I asked. Lily's face softened. I don't know. A beat. That's why I asked you the question. The kitchen went quiet. Rain tapped at the window over the sink. June patted in from the hallway, circled once near Lily's feet, then settled like she understood something important was happening and wanted front row seats. I looked at Lily for a long second, then I asked, when do you have to answer? Tomorrow. Of course, because apparently my life had decided normal pacing was overrated. She tried for a lighter tone and didn't quite manage it. I know, very healthy timing, very mature. I set my wine down. Lily. What? If I kiss you right now, is this because you got a job offer and your basement flooded and everything feels dramatic? Her eyes searched mine. No. Then what is it? Her voice dropped. It's because I've wanted you to for months. That did it. I crossed the space between us, touched her face with one hand, and gave her just enough time to stop me. She didn't. So I kissed her. Not reckless, not tentative either. The kind of kiss that tells the truth all at once. Her hand closed lightly on the front of my shirt, and for one disorienting second the whole world narrowed to warm kitchen light, rain on the glass, and the fact that I had spent months trying not to do exactly this. When we pulled back, she was still close enough that I could feel her breath. Well, she whispered, that seems inadequate. It's all I've got right now. I rested my forehead lightly against hers and let out a breath that sounded suspiciously like a laugh. Then Lily said the sentence that made the whole thing complicated again. Owen, if I stay, I need it to be for the right reason. I looked at her. Her fingers were still curled in my shirt. And suddenly I understood that the kiss had not solved the problem. It had only made the answer matter more. I didn't answer immediately. That was the first useful thing I did. Because the selfish answer was easy. Stay. Stay because your kitchen feels better with me in it. Stay because June already treats my porch like shared property. Stay because I finally kissed you and I don't want the first honest thing between us to become a goodbye scene by tomorrow. But Lily deserved better than the selfish answer. So I stepped back just enough to look at her clearly. You can't stay for me, I said. Her expression shifted. Not into disappointment exactly, more like she had expected that answer and still hated hearing it. I know. No, I said gently. I mean it. If Boston is the thing you want, then you take it. I'm not going. To become the reason you shrink your life and call it romance. That one landed. Her hand fell from my shirt. For half a second, I thought I'd ruined it. Then she looked at me with something softer than before. Do you know how rare it is, she said, for someone to want you and not immediately ask you to make your world smaller around them? I didn't know what to say to that, so I told her the truth. I learned the hard way what it feels like when love turns into a cage. Lily's face changed. She knew pieces of my divorce, not all of it, enough to know I didn't talk about it unless I had to. She wanted me smaller, she asked quietly. My ex? I leaned against the counter and looked down for a second. Not at first. At first it was compromise. Then it was practicality. Then every choice I made that wasn't about the marriage became a problem to manage. I smiled without humor. By the end, I was asking permission to be tired. Lily didn't interrupt. That was one of the reasons I liked her. She let silence do its job. I don't want to be that man to you, I said. And I don't want you waking up 6 months from now resenting me because you turned down something important after one flooded basement and one very overdue kiss. Her mouth curved faintly. Very overdue? Extremely. That got a real smile out of her. Good. Then she sighed and looked toward the window. The stupid thing is, I don't even know if I want Boston. Then what do you want? She laughed once, softly, like the question was too simple and too big. I want to stop treating my life like a reaction to the last man who made me feel stupid. I stayed still. She looked back at me. I moved here because my engagement fell apart and I wanted quiet. Then quiet started feeling like healing. Then this house started feeling like mine. Then you started being... She shook her head, searching for the word. You. That sounds suspiciously like blame. It is a little bit blame. Fair. She smiled, but her eyes were bright now. The offer is good, she said. But when they called, I didn't feel excited first. I felt tired, like I was being handed a more impressive version of a life I'm not sure I want anymore. That mattered. I could hear it in her voice. This wasn't about choosing me over Boston. It was about choosing herself over momentum. Before I could answer, June stood, trotted to the basement door, and barked once. We both jumped. Lily groaned. If that pipe is leaking again, I'm selling the house to raccoons. I grabbed my flashlight. Let's check. We went back downstairs together, and weirdly, that helped. The air cooled. The tension shifted. The practical world came back. Pipe, valve, concrete, tools, water stains. The patch held. No leak. Lily crouched beside me, peering at the repair. So it's safe? For tonight. She looked at me. That sounds familiar. I glanced at her. She wasn't talking about the pipe. I set the flashlight down. Then tomorrow, we do the permanent fix. Her smile was small but real. Still talking about the pipe? Mostly. Mostly is dangerous. I'm aware. We stayed down there a minute longer than necessary, both of us looking at the patched line like it had somehow become a metaphor too obvious to ignore. Then Lily said, I'm going to call Boston in the morning. I nodded. And I'm going to ask if the role can be remote for the first 6 months, with travel twice a month. That surprised me. Can they do that? Maybe. Maybe not. She stood. But if the job only works if I tear up the first life that has felt like mine in years, then maybe it's not as perfect as it looks. I felt something warm settle in my chest. Not relief exactly, respect. That sounds like the right question. She looked at me. You're annoyingly steady. I hide panic with posture. I know. We went upstairs again, and this time the kitchen didn't feel like a cliff edge. It felt like a room after a storm when the power has not fully come back. But the worst part is over. Lily walked me to the side door. Not because she wanted me to leave, because we both knew tonight had already given us enough to be careful with. At the door, she looked up at me. Are we pretending the kiss didn't happen until after my phone call tomorrow? No. Good. We're respecting the fact that it happened. Her expression softened. That was an unfairly good sentence. I do have moments. She leaned up and kissed me again. Shorter this time, still enough to ruin my sleep. When she pulled back, she whispered, Permanent fix tomorrow? I smiled. Permanent fix tomorrow. Then I crossed the yard in the rain thinking about pipes, choices, second chances, and the terrifying possibility that the right kind of love doesn't ask you to stay. It helps you figure out where you actually want to be. The next morning, I was in Lily's basement at 8 with copper pipe, fittings, a torch, and the very inconvenient memory of her kissing me by the side door. She came down 10 minutes later carrying 2 coffees and wearing an oversized sweatshirt, her hair tied badly on top of her head. You look serious, she said. I'm handling pressurized water. Still talking about the pipe? I looked over my shoulder. Mostly. She smiled into her coffee. That smile made the basement feel warmer than it had any right to. But we were different in daylight, not colder, just clearer. The kind of clear that comes after a night where 2 people say too much to go back, but not enough to be reckless. Boston called, she said. I set the wrench down. And? They said no to fully remote. I nodded slowly, trying not to let my face do anything selfish. But, she continued, They offered a consulting contract instead. 3 months, 2 trips up there. No relocation. I looked at her then. Really looked. And what did you say? I said I'd think about it. She leaned against the old workbench, both hands around the cup. Then I hung up and realized I already had. My pulse shifted. Lily? I'm not staying because of one kiss, she said, reading me before I could object. I'm not staying because you fixed my pipe or because you're annoyingly good at being steady. I'm staying because when I imagined packing this house, leaving June's muddy paw prints on that porch, giving up my clients here, my garden plans, my stupid little routines. She looked around the basement, then back at me. It felt like leaving myself again. That was the answer. Not romantic enough for a movie poster, maybe. Better than that. Real. I stood and wiped my hands on a rag. Then I'm glad. You're just glad? I took one step closer. I'm extremely glad. Her mouth curved. Better. Then she looked at the patched pipe behind me. So what happens now? Now I fix this properly. And after that? After that, I take you to dinner. A real date? Yes. No basement emergencies? None planned. No dramatic job offers? Please don't schedule one. She laughed, and this time, when I kissed her, it wasn't a crisis kiss. It wasn't a flooded basement kiss or a don't leave yet kiss. It was slower. Simpler. A kiss that belonged to the morning after the storm, not the storm itself. When we pulled apart, June barked upstairs like she had opinions. Lily sighed. She's going to be unbearable. She learned from you. Careful, I still haven't paid your invoice. That afternoon, the new pipe held. No hiss, no drip. No hidden leak waiting to ruin the ceiling. Lily stood beside me at the bottom of the stairs, arms folded, looking at the clean repair like it meant more than plumbing. Permanent fix, she said softly. For the pipe. She looked at me. Mostly. Our first date was that Friday, nothing fancy. A small Thai place with crooked tables, good food, and a waitress who somehow knew we were nervous before we did. Lily told me about the first house she ever designed. I told her more about my divorce than I had told anyone in years. Not because she pulled it out of me. Because for once, talking didn't feel like giving someone ammunition. After dinner, we walked home through warm evening rain, and when we reached the split between our yards, she didn't go straight inside. She stood there under the porch light and said, I like that I can go home and still be close to you. That one stayed with me, because that was what we built after that. Not urgency, not a life made smaller, a life close enough to choose every day. 3 months later, she took the Boston consulting contract and came home from each trip with stories, tired, eyes, and the same relief when June barreled toward her at the door. 6 months later, I rebuilt her basement shelves, and she redesigned my kitchen because, according to her, your cabinets are emotionally hostile. A year later, our yards had one shared garden between them because neither of us could remember whose idea it was to stop pretending the fence mattered. We didn't rush moving in. That was important. We had both lived through love that asked for too much too fast and then called the damage compromise. So we took our time. Morning coffee on her porch, dinner at my place, June sleeping wherever she wanted, which was usually exactly where she was most in the way. Then one ordinary Sunday, Lily stood in my kitchen, opened the wrong drawer for the 3rd time and said, This is ridiculous. What is? I have 2 kitchens and only one life. So she moved in the next month. Not because she had nowhere else to go, because she knew exactly where she wanted to be. And every now and then, when rain hit the basement window and the old house made its settling noises, she'd look at me and say, Remember when I asked if you were trying not to kiss me? And I'd say, I was trying very hard. Then she'd smile like she still liked knowing that. What would you have done if you were fixing the pipes in your neighbor's basement? And she stepped too close and asked if you were trying not to kiss her. And have you ever had one ordinary favor turn into the moment you realized someone had quietly become part of your life? Tell me your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.